Welcome to the Pittsburgh Dish. I'm your host, Doug Heilman. Do you want a job that makes you eat 32 cheeseburgers from all across the city? This week's guest gives us the inside look of being a local food editor. Want to add some sparkle to your summer wine season? Our friend Catherine is back with her bubbly personality and a few wine picks. And what's the origin story behind this week's recipe for Mapo Tofu? We'll give a call to the West Coast to find out. All that ahead. Stay tuned. Thanks for listening to the Pittsburgh Dish. Don't forget to hit that follow button in whatever app you use to listen to podcasts. We'd love it if you would share an episode or two with a friend. And if you have the time, leave us a review. It really helps us out. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Would you introduce yourself and what you have going on right now in the food world?
My name is Kristy Graver, and I am the food editor of Pittsburgh Magazine. And right now, actually, our new issue is out, the June issue, and it is my best restaurants list. And
yes.
It's our 25 tasty picks. So, I mean, it runs the gamut from like LeMont, which like is I went to LeMont for the first time, and it's great being treated like a queen. I'm sorry. I mean, I wore a creep show t-shirt, whatever, but and it's really, really high end. But then there's like a sandwich shop on here, like long story short, in Lawrenceville, and it's great sandwiches and a great vibe, and it's nostalgic. And, I'm 45 and it fits right in my wheelhouse. So that's the best restaurant to me. It's whatever goes the extra mile and brings me back and has good food and has a good vibe. And that's, and then there's also a guy who makes soup. He has a little soup kiosk. Right now it's at Fermata Brewing, but he's going to be taking summer off because he's going to Norway to research recipes and stuff. But yeah, he's going to be back in his little red shack, and it's the best soup you've ever tasted.
I need to go there.
Yeah.
I love this. I'm so excited to have you and talk about all these things. I just saw this list. And I have to say, what you're saying is like that diversity of the sense of place, the different cuisines, the way it's presented. I think that's what I appreciate most about where you're going, is it just runs the gamut.
Yes, thank you. And I was, like we were saying, like everything's so expensive now, and like not everyone could afford to go out to eat, especially the way I eat.
Right.
And I feel very fortunate to be able to do that. But there's got to be, it's not all like white linen tablecloths and everything. It could be just like a fun, funky place where you could get a beer too and just kick back.
Absolutely. And that's not even what everyone wants. I don't think everyone wants high dining. I mean, it's nice once in a while. So again, just kudos. And I do secretly think you might have the best job ever.
I absolutely do. I do.
So let's just take a little step back. How long have you been the food editor at Pittsburgh Magazine?
Coming up on 2 years that you told me. So it's hard to believe because I've been so many places, and it's just, I can't believe it's only been 2 years. It feels like 10. I've been a journalist for 20 years, but the food thing has really, just in the last maybe 5 years it's really taken off with the food, just because that was what was opening, and that's what I was reporting on just for the Trib, for Next Pittsburgh. So I just kind of fell into it. And then Pittsburgh Magazine offered me this amazing job, this amazing opportunity. And like, I was literally at my grandparents' grave, Christ Our Redeemer in Westview. And that's when I got the call that I got the job.
Wow.
And it was just a really magical moment. And that's not even a lie. Like, I have pictures of it. I just was so thankful.
Yes.
And my grandma Graver could not cook. So,
oh my goodness. I think I read this article. Is she the one that knew how to use a can opener?
Yeah, SpaghettiOs. That's all we ever had.
Oh, but you still had a lot of good laughs around SpaghettiOs.
Totally. And, I have a Last Supper portrait in my office, and like, just like she had hanging up in her house. And so, there's like little nods to my grandparents. My Italian grandma could cook, but German one, no.
Well, so let's take a little step back first and talk about family. You're a lifelong Pittsburgher.
Yes.
And as you just said, like, you've got roots on your mom's side. Those were the cooking, the sort of deeper Italian roots. Is that right?
Italian roots. My great grandparents were from Calabria. And at one point, I was not alive at this point, but my great grandparents had a restaurant called Pixie's. somewhere in McKees Rock. I don't know anything about it. Like it's very sketchy. You would think that someone was taking pictures, like kept a menu, something like. There's just no record of this place.
It was called Pixies.
Pixies,
and it was in McKees Rocks.
I believe so, or like Stowe, somewhere around. That's where that part of the family's from. But my grandma lived above Jenny Lee Bakery.
Yes, so you would go over and you'd probably be smelling the cinnamon swirl bread.
Yes, and I got to interview people at Jenny Lee and got a tour, and it was, I mean, that was the best.
Full circle.
Totally full circle. And Mancini's too was always a big part of my life. Wow. And now, like, you know, we're buddies. Like, I mean, I love that family. So I think my mom even like dated one of their brothers or something. Who knows? But I mean, it's so, Pittsburgh is just so like that. But to go to the places that I grew up, these institutions like Iron City Beer, that is thrilling for me, and it's a high honor. And I don't take it lightly. I love it.
So deserving, so great. And I do want to take a step around the Robin of where you have done journalism. So tell me where you went to school.
I went to the University of Pittsburgh.
And so did you work for the Pitt?
I worked for the Pitt News.
That's right. That was sort of your first sort of foray?
That was I was on like, you know, the Plum highlights in high school. I went to Plum High School.
Okay.
And actually just spoke at their career day maybe like a month ago, and how horrifying, because to be back in high school, and I was a huge nerd. And like there was like 2 kids that were like semi interested in what I had to say, but whatever. So I started with the school newspaper, and because I was never popular and I was very shy, but I was never shy with my writing. With
your words.
I felt like I could like kind of hide behind those words, not hide behind them, but I could say what I wanted to say without.
This is how you could come out. And be yourself and express your thoughts.
Totally. And I've been doing that ever since. My best friend, Katie, she was a co-editor with me, and she is a loud, boisterous, has this magnetic personality. She was the one, like, you know, and she's still that way. But I like to like hang back and just observe.
Okay.
So.
And so after high school and college at Pitt and writing for the Pitt News as well, then you sort of made your rounds to a lot of the local publications. What was food playing a role before Pittsburgh Magazine? Were you doing some food journalism then?
When I graduated from college, I could not find a job in journalism, and I was very, very frustrated. So I applied to a newspaper in Ocean City, Maryland, and I got it. And I think the first food story I ever did was I saw the Wienermobile parked outside of a hotel in Ocean City. And I just went to the front desk. I'm like, can I talk to these people? And they're like, yeah, sure. So I did, you know, they were taking a busload of nuns to like an Orioles game in the Wienermobile. Like,
oh my goodness.
I thought that was like the best thing ever.
It is the best story ever.
Right. And they were like so cool. And I've interviewed a lot of Wienermobile drivers since then, including a Pittsburgh native. I think her name was Rachel All, Aull. And it was just fascinating. Like, what a fun job for the summer. Right. Like, I mean, I would love to do that.
They're still doing it.
Yeah, they're still doing it. And I think they changed the name to the Frankmobile. I don't know if that's stuck.
I don't know. I thought it's the Wienermobile, but
no one's ever going to call it the Frankmobile.
No.
It's just not going to happen. Like, no. You know, but I love the Wienermobile, and I just saw it, you know, a couple months ago, parked down by the Sheraton. And anytime I see it, I have to stop and I love it. But that was my first food story. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When were you able to make your way back to Pittsburgh and do journalism
here? It was
here?
After about 2 years. I just miss Pittsburgh so much. Like, there's a lot of Steelers bars down in Ocean City, Maryland. There's one called Buxy's Salty Dog Saloon. It's owned by a Pittsburgher, and I met like Rocky Blyer there. It's really weird. Like, all the Pittsburghers go there. I saw like Ben Roethlisberger. Like, I'm not a huge sports fan, but at the time, Tommy Maddox got knocked out. Ben Roethlisberger came in, and it was like a start of a new Steelers era. Yes. And I was at the Salty Dog for that. But I miss Pittsburgh so much, and I moved back, and I got a job with the Trib. They had purchased Gateway newspapers, so I work for like these little neighborhood papers, which are still going strong. And it was so fun. I covered first I covered Bridgeville, Pine Creek Journal, and I covered school districts, and I did a lot of municipal government meetings, and kind of dry.
Riveting.
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh.
Not.
But it taught me a lot about setback requirements. And so now, like, when people are opening a business, they have to deal with all this crap that I'm like,
you understand like this jurisdictional municipality requirements of a new restaurant.
Just open up a McDonald's. Like, you can't just, it's not that easy. And I think, you know, so I feel like anyone that wants to be in the restaurant industry right now is really passionate about it, because It is a lot.
It's a lot of hurdles.
Yes. I don't think I could do it.
Isn't it interesting that your other reporting fed you to the things you're doing now, or helps gives you even a better understanding?
Literally,
It always sort of comes back to how do we apply our skills to the next step?
Right. I had no clue. I wasn't like purposefully going to, write about food, and it just kind of gradually happened that way. And it's over 20 years. So it's not people like, you have the best job in the world. And I'm like, I do, but I didn't always. I was really a starving artist, and doing freelance sucks. It's really hard to maintain a life, but there's nothing else I could do.
Yeah. You reminded me of a couple of things. I'm going to take a step back and then a step forward to the food editor. When you were growing up, did you have any food aversions, or were you a pretty open eater? Like, was it everything goes, or?
I ate everything. And like my mom will attest to this. I mean, I was just like a really good, obedient child. I look forward to eating, and I had my own little kitchen play set, and still can't cook, but my brother was a very picky one. He ate nothing, but I ate everything.
You and I are parallels. I would eat everything. My sister was very picky.
Yeah. I just didn't understand. My mom was always had dinner on the table, and just was, really good that way. And like our whole family, we're always having picnics, and just everyone brings a dish. And so food has always been like, for a lot of people, just like a bonding thing. And that's how we bonded as a family, and still doing that now.
Yeah. But it sounded like to me that you don't really do a ton of cooking, but you do go out to eat a lot for your job.
Yeah. If I cook at home, it's very rare, and I'm not a great cook. So, my daughter will attest that she would much rather go out to a restaurant than eat my food. And she'll tell me straight out, she does not mince words. Oh. But I would rather let the experts do the cooking and feed me.
I agree. Why not? And then you also don't have to clean up the kitchen.
Right.
Yeah. So let's then now jump back forward. You did all this journalism in your formative years. You get this job at Pittsburgh Magazine in the last couple of years as a food editor. I think, number one, you're the first food editor for a magazine I've had on the show.
Oh, I'm flattered.
Can we talk about the life of a food editor? For our listeners out there, maybe walk us through like a week or a month, like what goes on in terms of you visiting and finding places to then creating a story. I don't even know what comes first.
Yeah. There's lots of movies about editors, not necessarily food editors, but like we're Sex in the City. Like we're just living this like fabulous life and making all this money. It's not very lucrative, but you make up for it in other ways. So for me, for a story, I write about what I'm interested in. And if I have an interest in like, there's a story in this issue about Frankie's Extra Long. It's this hot dog shop in Lawrenceville. It's been there for 75 years. Yes. And it's just, it sticks out like a sore thumb in Lawrenceville because all these trendy places are popping up, and it has not changed in that long. Like even the countertop, they were replacing it, but they kept it and they hung the old one on the wall because all the people were like, you can't get rid of that.
I feel like when you go to Frankie's, don't they still like, if you order like extra ketchup, they're like, that's going to be 5 cents.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's so fun, and nothing has changed. I love that.
Yes.
I think a lot of restaurants are going for that, like the old school feel, and very nostalgic. And you can't replicate what Frankie's has because it's, the linoleum, just the smell of it smells like onions. It's just a cool vibe, and not everyone is into that, but I am.
Yeah.
So I was interested. I stopped by one day. I'm like, can I do a story? And they're like, sure.
Yeah.
And they were actually in Pittsburgh Magazine in 1990, and I didn't know, but it's hanging on the wall at Frankie's if you just look by the bar.
Well, it's been 30 years.
It's been 30.
It's time for them to be back on.
I cannot believe 30 years. It seems like yesterday. But so yeah, I just did a story. I interviewed the people at the Pittsburgh Pickle Company for Picklesburg coming up, and what cool dudes. And I worked at a video store when I was in high school in Oakmont called Video Hits, and like they remembered me from there.
Oh my
goodness. They were kids and they would come in and rent like a Super Nintendo. And I'm like, so, I think being a native here, it gives me not credibility, but I think people are willing to talk to me because they know I love it.
Yes.
I'm not just doing it to sell magazines. Like, that's important. I want people to read it, but I want people to know about it because I find it interesting, and I think other people will too.
Right. So it sounds like some of the stories are just because you love it.
Yes.
And then there are some, I would just say, bigger features. Like I'm thinking about your current list in this month's issue, or the burger bracket.
Yeah.
That's like a longer feature.
That's over several months. And like with Pittsburgh, like the best restaurants, it's just like I go places throughout the year and, just keeping a mental Rolodex of all these places. There's so many places.
Oh my goodness.
Pittsburgh. Like I say in my story, like you can't possibly get to all of them and, what's best anyway.
Right.
But these are my best, what I like this year. It's hard deciding where to go because there are so many places. But for a story like the burger bracket, I just started eating burgers and like I ate every single one of those. I didn't take a bite and then, because our photographer did all the artwork like after the fact. I ate every single one of those and I gained 10 pounds.
I was going to say, Kristy, like where's the cholesterol level right now?
I haven't really checked that out. I probably need to be just like taking Lipitor or something, but exactly. I definitely gained 10 pounds.
Oh my.
And but it was delicious.
Yeah.
But for a number of years, I had just like this constitution where I could eat things and not affect me. But now I'm 45 and it suddenly came to a screeching halt.
Oh,
and I cannot do that. But I love food and I like going out and I like beer and there's a lot of breweries here.
Yes.
I just wrote about like 3 new ones that are opening up. It's like there's so much happening and I really can't resist it.
You can't stop yourself.
I can't, and I like being there and I like talking about it and I like reporting on it. So I don't know what I would do otherwise. I don't know. Maybe we need to get together and like talk about, well, how are you taking care of yourself?
Yeah,
what are you doing? Because I don't really know the answer other than walking. I walk in Allegheny Cemetery. It's my favorite place in Pittsburgh. It's 350 acres. So, I walk, but
this is your exercise.
This is my exercise.
Yeah. I love hearing this. And I do want to ask some sort of detail questions. So with the magazine and even the online, do you have a certain amount of articles that you're going for or tasked with in a month's time or something like that?
We have a newsletter. I have the Pittsburgh Eats newsletter that comes out every Thursday, and we have 3 stories in that. And I like to have 3 fresh stories in that. We could like regurgitate other ones from the year,
or older ones or something.
But things change so often.
There's
in
so
Pittsburgh
much
food.
There's so much in Pittsburgh.
So even if I wrote something like 2 months ago, the chef might be gone, or they might not have that beer. They definitely don't have that dish. It's really hard to keep up. With something, especially when it's like published, but with the web, I try to get 3 stories a week. Like, this week I talk about Jeff Bertrand. He's an artist and he collects McDonald's toys and he has a whole room in his house. And it was something different. It's food related, but I didn't actually have to consume anything. I didn't have to eat McDonald's. I just, things like that are fun for me. Or doing a story on like the snowman, like it's a snowman shaped ice cream stand up in Portersville. I love that stuff. So I try to have 3 fresh stories. I'm a procrastinator, but when I need to get something done, I get it done. So it's all about just figuring out schedules. Like I'm trying to work out a schedule right now to talk to Scott from East End Brewing because they're opening up the Roundabout Beer Garden, which is really cool. And Scott's been in this business 20 years this year. So there's so much to talk about. And where do I start?
I was going to say, although you have the title food editor, you're really doing food and drink. Definitely. Yes. I think there could be a whole podcast on local breweries.
Yes.
And there's just not enough time in the day to get to them. So you have this huge swath of things to pull from.
Yeah. A lot of times I do roundups. I don't really like lists.
Yes.
And which very tiny little details about things. I really don't like doing that because it's not very creative. You just pick something off their Instagram page or something. I would rather talk to a person and get a full story out of it. But sometimes there's so much information. That's what I have to do. I can't write separate stories on all of these. But, for my part, that's why I like the magazine style of writing.
Yes.
It allows me to put myself in it. So I'm not like a just the facts kind of reporter. I like to tell a story. And again, like Rick Seaback, my hero. I like to tell stories, other people's stories. And if my story kind of relates to that, like in the fact, the Iron City beer, my dad had an Iron City beer truck, and combining that into the story about Iron City beer, I'll do it.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just sidestep. Your dad had an Iron City beer truck?
He did. It was like an old International Harvester, 1947. And he found it in a junkyard, and it used to deliver beer for Vincini's. He fixed it up. He painted it bright yellow and put Iron City beer logos on it. He actually did a commercial for Iron City beer back in the late 80s. They had a contest.
Oh, cool.
If you could do your own beer commercial. And the guy that won, it was like a beer truck coming around, like an ice cream truck in the neighborhood. But all the husbands would run out, ask their wives for beer money and run out to.
I feel like I
It's on YouTube.
remember this.
It's on YouTube, and my dad's sadly failed, but and I told Todd from Iron City Beer about that, and it's part of me.
Yeah.
And I can't help that, I become friends with people that, I write about or I meet people because of the things I write.
Well, I mean, this is how Pittsburgh is anyway.
Yeah.
I think the food and drink community, there's bonds and networking, but also you're just people.
Yes.
So you're going to get to know each other and like each other.
Right.
And you want everyone to succeed.
I absolutely do. And it's important to me. And I love seeing something go from like just a small pop-up to like a brick and mortar, and how exciting. And I love to be part of that. And I love to keep helping people. So, and I'm not unapproachable. If you have a story idea, email me. Hi, this is Kristy Graver. I'm the food editor of Pittsburgh Magazine, and this is the Pittsburgh Dish.
So just to summarize, you're doing a lot of weekly reporting for the web-based newsletter. You have probably stories always kind of churning in your head.
Always.
And, over a month or a year's time, I'm sure with the burger bracket, like you said, you had to work on that. You don't have a staff of 10 people eating burgers for you.
No.
You're doing it all.
Yes.
It gets me thinking too, with this journalism, this reporting that you're doing, the power in that. Do you see the impact that you make by writing or including a restaurant?
I do.
Yeah.
And I know it's important. I know how much the people that were on the burger bracket, it was the restaurants taking ownership of it and hey, vote for us in this burger bracket. It really, Pittsburgh Magazine kind of got lost in the shuffle of it because it was about the restaurants, which it always should. But it is a big deal.
Yeah.
And if you are featured, I know what the impact I have. I know the audience that I reach and how it could really affect a business. And I never want to affect people negatively. I know Cicero's lost the burger bracket. I wouldn't say lost, but sentimentally, they're my favorite burger in Pittsburgh and probably in the world. So I stopped by Cicero's a couple weeks ago. I had another burger, and I just asked everyone on the staff to sign my copy of the magazine, just because I really, really love them, and I've been going there for 30 years. And what an institution! And I hope it never ever goes away.
If anyone didn't see this latest article, who came out on top?
Moonlit.
Yeah, that's right. Up in Dormont, and they also have the Paddy Wagon.
The Paddy Wagon. They have a place at Duquesne.
Okay.
And they're opening up a restaurant in Sewickley.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, they're really, really cool guys. And they've been chefs for 20 years. And it's just a really good burger. And it's a really cool vibe there. Yeah. I think I said best restaurant for kids. Well, I'm a big kid. And I just like the feel. It made me feel like the Hardee's days of my youth, I just really like what they're doing. And I like how much they've grown from a pandemic pop-up to a major chain.
I was going to say, Cicero's is old school. Yes, it's always good. Moonlit is sort of a new school for me. I'm just going to say the Commoner has a darn good burger. Really good burger at the Commoner.
It was delicious. Everything at the Commoner is really good. And it's no lie, I loved these burgers.
I think getting back to this, the power in journalism, and this is why you want to eat every burger, because you want to know, you're writing about these places. So you don't really want to rely on somebody else telling you.
No. And it's hard. I ate 32 burgers, so you don't have to, but you could take your time with it.
Oh my gosh.
But burgers are just it's a really good way to gauge a restaurant. If you could do a burger well, you can do lots of things well. Yes. Burgers. I'm still not sick of them. I'm taking a break. Horrible diet.
One a week is fine.
Yeah, sure. Pizza's been my thing now, and I don't know why. I've just been eating a lot of pizza, and I can't stop.
Oh my gosh. I could have pizza every day as well. Most of the journalism I see you doing is also, it's positive.
I've been to places and I'm not too keen on it. And that's my personal taste. But if something's so not good enough, or if I don't have anything nice to say, I just won't say it.
Yeah. And best to say nothing at all.
Right. And I really live by that. And I think there's more room for kindness and compassion and just being a good neighbor, like Mr. Rogers taught us.
Just going to say that. We just had 143 Day, so yes.
Right. And I get really emotional about Mr. Rogers. I just watched the Tom Hanks movie. I'd never seen it. And I was like weeping because I think Pittsburgh really is that good.
Yes.
Maybe not on the Parkway, but
I can agree with you on that one. All right. So while we're still in the neighborhood of food, can you give us a couple of spots that you might consider hidden gems, like one or two places that you just wish people knew more about, or you discovered it and it was a big surprise to you?
I think probably, Fuel and Fuddle closed last year.
Yeah.
Fuel and Fuddle was my place, my college bar, and it just beyond that, and that's where I learned about good beer and all that stuff. And I really didn't have a third place for me after that closed. So I found Red's Good News in Brookline.
Yeah.
Red's Good News is, how do I explain it? It's like a cross between Pee-wee's Playhouse and every 90s bar / coffee shop in any 90s movie. Like, I keep waiting for Ethan Hawke to just stroll in.
Oh,
yes. I mean, it just has this, and I was a teenager in the 90s.
This is your vintage.
It's my vintage, and it's just such a unique place. It's really hard to describe. But so they're not like a full scale restaurant, but they have excellent chicken fingers. They have great smash burgers. They have a really good chicken salad, like a fried chicken salad. I mean, it goes way beyond what you think like this random bar in Brookline would
I
be.
was going to say, for anybody that doesn't know, it's up in Brookline,
Yes.
right on Brookline Boulevard, right?
Yes.
And it's just a couple doors down from Oak Hill Post and Pita Land.
Yes.
It opens a little later in the day.
It does.
Yeah.
Usually like around 4. But they have like a little patio area out front. And they can open up like the windows, and it's just they're
Great
always
for
doing
summer.
fun. The owner Greg, he decorates the place himself, and there's usually lots of themes. My girlfriend and I, that was where we had our first date, and it was our anniversary, and they went all out for us. Like, what they did was just, it's so sweet, like special place setting and flowers, and they got us like a ho-ho cake. It was like they know us, but
Yeah.
they don't know us.
You can't beat it.
So, and they also have my favorite Pittsburgh cocktail right now. It's called a Mayor's Cup. It's named after the owner's son. And it's actually a Schneider's iced tea carton. And it is parking chair vodka and lemon and grenadine. And it's Mayor's Cup, and they're just the best.
Do they serve it in the Schneider's?
Serve it in the carton.
I've seen this.
And it just kind of feels like, elementary school lunch in a way, but you're getting drunk.
I love it. Oh.
It's just very whimsical. The whole place is just like really cool. So Brookline in general is kind of like a sleeper foodie place. There's Oak Hill Post, like you mentioned. I was just there on Sunday. Their creme brulee French toast is my favorite breakfast in Pittsburgh, and I think it always will be. It is the best.
That is saying something.
I love it. And I usually get biscuits. And on Sunday, I did not get a biscuit with my order because I'm like, well, do I need all those carbs? I'm really going to eat it. And the owner was actually worried, and he brought one out just in case, you
didn't get a biscuit.
I didn't get a biscuit. And then I did eat it. So.
All right. Let me just say, is there one more outside of Red's Good News that's a sleeper hit for you?
Sleeper hit for me is...
You had mentioned to me, you and I met up when Artie Pitt of Artie's Hot Sauce had a meetup in Fulton Commons.
Yes.
And while we were talking, I feel like you told me about a gas station that has a window that serves food of some sort.
Well, there's a gas station. It doesn't have a window. It's Marshall Cigar.
Okay.
It's in kind of Spring Hill, Troy Hill area.
Okay, this is it.
It was down from Threadbare. And I had heard that they had the best Reuben in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And I'm like, it's a cigar shop. It's a gas station.
Have you been?
I have. And Reuben is sandwiches are my favorite thing. But Reubens are just right up there with, and it is enormous and delicious. And that is when people say, where can I get a good Reuben? You can get a good Reuben usually anywhere, but this is the best.
And say it. Say it again.
Marshall Cigar.
Okay.
In Spring Hill. You really can't miss it. It's a gas station.
Okay.
You're just like, what? So you walk in, and it's not like it's like a restaurant. They have a window inside of the restaurant.
Got you.
And so you go in there, and it's just like real old school and just friendly. And you're like, yeah, I'll have they have other sandwiches too. But I was just obsessed with this Reuben that, it was as big as my head.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, those are great. Those are two great gems.
Yes.
So, Kristy, we'll take you forward. You're doing the newsletter every week, 3 fresh articles.
Yes.
The magazine comes out both digital and in print monthly?
Yes. So
Okay.
June is out right now.
Yep. I don't know how to ask this for you. Do you have any goals or any big plans with what you're working on this year, or anything outside of the magazine?
I like horror movies. I would love to do. My dream would be to work for Fangoria magazine. I mean, that's what I read when I was a kid, and I would love to even do one article, like maybe about like Tom Savini. Like my coworker Laura, she's taken me on a photo shoot with Tom Savini. I have nothing to do with the story, but I'm just a big horror nerd, and Pittsburgh is like such a huge place for the birthplace of the zombie. And,
yes.
So I'm a huge Romero nerd. So I would like
this is your own personal vibe.
Yes.
It doesn't have anything to do with food.
No.
And if somebody doesn't know who Tom Savini is.
Yes, Tom. I just assume people just. Tom Savini has been a special effects makeup artist for, decades. He's also an actor, but he did the makeup for Dawn of the Dead, George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. And the only reason he didn't do Night of the Living Dead special effects is because he was in Vietnam.
Okay.
And he was a combat photographer. So, he saw some stuff. And when I talked to Tom Savini, he's like, you know more about me than me. And that's my level of fandom and nerddom, and I love it. And George, there's more pictures of George Romero in my house than of like my family. So I collect that stuff. But I would love to write something along the lines of Pittsburgh horror. But as far as like food and drink, I would really like to do a story on like non-alcoholic movement.
Yes, the NA movement is big.
It is, and it's like, for me, I've always been a beer drinker, and I've always been a drinker. That's just, as I'm getting older, I can't really do it, and I'm not enjoying it as much, not because it's not good, but it's just how it makes me feel.
Yeah, how we tolerate it as we get
even
older.
Just like 2 beers. And so I would love to do a story on NA, and like I know Two Phrase Brewery and Garfield, they do like a Monday, like I'll call Monday nights and stuff like that. And I'm interested because I know a lot of younger people, what I've heard, they aren't as big on drinking.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's like you go to a bar and you're just drinking mocktails. Like, what's that like?
Yeah, it still has to be good. I think I talked with Alex of Alex Eats Too Much about St. Clair Social. They have a pretty good non-alcoholic menu, but they're still using spirits.
Yes.
That are distilled, but distilled to the point where they don't have alcohol, but they have all the flavor.
Yes.
And that's different than drinking like a pineapple juice and spritzer or something.
Right. So it tastes like what you're used to, but you don't get that. And like, are people drinking just for the buzz, or like, because I don't even really like that feeling anymore. So it's interesting to me, and like just the culture, like I'm just interested in exploring that in like a real way, and what it means for all these breweries that are and distilleries that are popping up. Like, if people aren't drinking, well, what are they going to do? And like, I love these places. I don't want them to go away. So
it's like the next way you evolve or diversify. So you're getting all the crowds and all of those people that still want to have experience.
Yes.
Can go and be included.
Right. Everyone wants the experience.
Yeah.
Me too. I enjoy being out and about. I really do. I'm very rarely at home. I should be home just watching horror movies, but I don't have an attention span anymore, so I really don't. But I like just the idea, especially with horror, you can experience it without watching it. You could bask in the glory of like your nerdy zombie figurine collection like I do.
Okay. And I love this. And so for everyone, Kristy also today brought me, I don't want to mispronounce this. You also specialize in clothespin dolls.
Yes.
And you brought me a guy, Fieri or Fieri, whatever it said, as a clothespin doll. I'm looking at it right now. He's got the little tuft of hair. Just really quick, tell me, where did this get started? I love it.
My best friend Katie, who I mentioned before, when her older brother was little, he made a clothespin Dracula at school, and it was a Christmas ornament, and so it's always been on their tree. For 30 years, it's been on their tree, and every time I would go over her house around the Christmas time, I would love it. I just would gravitate to this, like very, it's like, and this was before Nightmare Before Christmas. I just love Halloween so much, and I just love seeing this cute little Dracula. So when she moved out of her parents' house, I made her a Dracula for her tree. Oh. And now it has become like a full-blown weirdo thing. I have hundreds, and I could do any character, and I used to sell them at different markets and stuff like that, but I would make 10 Jason Voorhees clothespins in a row. Now I kind of just like doing one at a time and taking my time with it. And you were a fan of Guy, and I'm like, I haven't done that. So let's try it.
You have a whole new food line you can explore.
Yes. And so I made one for Gina at Linnea Verde Market and Bloomfield because she's the best person. She just like has this.
She does. I want to interview her.
She is the best. I think I was there for like 4 hours. I mean, she's this wonderful person. And I'm like, you just need to be clothespined because you're just this magnetic.
Wait, so did you make a clothespin of her?
Yes.
Oh,
so
I love this.
So in the last issue, it's like on the front cover of her.
Is she
of
holding
that section?
it?
She's holding.
That's it. That's right. I do remember that. Now this is a whole new line. You could be doing Pittsburgh personality clothespins now.
That's what I like to. I mailed one to Rick Seebeck years ago, and he gets so much mail. Like he didn't find it for like a year. A year later, he got back to me and he's like, "Oh, hey, I found a little Rick. I've made Andy Warhols and stuff like that. But Mr. Rogers. But I love it. I have insomnia, so that's what I do at night when I can't sleep. I just go in I have a little walk-in closet, and that's where I keep all my black T-shirts, and that's where I paint. And when someone has a special request, I love it, and it's fun.
Kristy Graver, food, horror, and clothespin dolls.
Yeah.
I think this is why I love you. Can you plug yourself and or the magazine for our listeners? If people want to get to know you a little bit better, follow your writing, where can they find you and all of your good stuff?
Well, pittsburghmagazine.com or, sign up for the magazine's beautiful. The photography, especially, it makes my stories 1,000 times better. I love Laura and Huck are our photographers, and they're the best. Food photography is very hard. And I've been on shoots with Laura for the hamburger one, and we were there for like 3 hours. It was so fun to see what goes into it. So go to pittsburghmagazine.com or on Instagram, I'm Undeadhead78, or you could go to We Are Going to Eat You, the letter U. It's a reference to a zombie movie, like my whole life is. So you could go there, and if you want a clothespin, it's Clothespinhead, like Pinhead, but Clothespinhead. And Doug Bradley, he's Pinhead from the Hellraiser movies. He lives in Pittsburgh, and one of these days, I've made clothespin pinheads, but I would love to give him one personally. So if anyone knows Doug, let me know.
Reach out to Kristy. Make it happen. All right, Kristy, I have one final question for you. Maybe this is going to be a tough question because of your line of work. The name of our show is The Pittsburgh Dish. What has been the best dish you have eaten this week?
This week? I went to the new Dough Daddy Brewery in Gibsonia. It's the old Strange Roots Brewery. So it's a Caliente, kind of like an offshoot. I don't want to call it, but so Angie Bogatz, she owns it, and she's the wife of Nick, who owns Caliente, but they started it together. Anyway, Angie's really big into beer. And so this place is like really great. Just opened last Friday, but they have this Sicilian style pizza. So we ordered like a bunch of them, but yesterday I just was running late and I just grabbed a piece of cold Dough Daddy pizza, and it was so good. It just made me really happy. Simple. And
That's it?
It's big, and it was like big and spongy and just delicious. And, I have a lot of leftovers in my fridge all the time, but so that was really good for me, and it really worked. But I eat so many places.
I know.
Like I could think of 1,000 other things.
But this week it was Dough Daddy Beer's Sicilian pizza. Cold.
It was great, warm, but I like cold pizza, and it just really hit the spot when I had to go. And that's what I ran on all day.
Kristy Graver, thank you so much for being on the Pittsburgh Dish.
Thank you. It was fun.
How can you add a little sparkle and bubble into your summer wine drinking? We check in with Catherine Montest of Your Fairy Wine Mother to find out. Hey everybody, we're back with our wine expert, Catherine Montest of Your Fairy Wine Mother. Catherine, we are finally arriving into the warmer season of the year, and I was wondering if you have some great wine picks for the summer.
I think I do. And what I'm going to challenge folks to do is to ditch the beer, but not ditch the bubbles.
Okay.
So what I'm recommending for the summer, and what's going to be my go-to all summer long, is either Cremant or Cava. Are you familiar with those?
I don't think I'm really familiar with either one. I feel like Cava I've heard of, and it's a sparkling wine?
Absolutely.
Okay. Cremant, not so much.
Okay. Well, they're very closely related to champagne.
Okay.
And they cannot be called champagne, even though they're made in exactly the same method, using exactly the same process. But over in Europe, especially the folks in Champagne, created some laws back in 1936. you can only call it champagne if it's made in Champagne.
In the region.
In the region of Champagne.
Okay.
So both Cremant, which is champagne that's not made in Champagne, in France. So you may have Cremant de Bourgogne or Cremant de whatever other region in France that they're in. They're using the method champenois or traditional method.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of times you can get these at a massive discounted price compared to champagne. Champagnes are going to start around $50 a bottle and go way up from there. Where Cremant, because it's lesser known and the real estate in other parts of France are not as valuable as it is in Champagne.
Interesting.
So you're paying for the price of the real estate.
That is so fascinating. Yet you're still drinking a bubbly, effervescent white wine from France.
Absolutely.
At a steal.
Completely.
I love it.
And cava is Spain's version of champagne as well.
Yes, Spanish cava. I've heard of
Spanish cava.
Yes.
Spanish cava is one of the bottles that I use when I make sangria.
Oh, how interesting.
You can get Cremant and cava in white, rosé, and even occasionally reds.
Wait, that kind of blows my mind. I was going to ask you if they came in rosé.
Absolutely.
But are you saying that there's red, sparkling champagne-like wines?
Yes.
Never heard of that.
Have I just melted your brain?
A little bit. You've done this before, and yet again.
Not a lot of winemakers make them,
Okay.
but they're absolutely out there.
Yeah, so a little bit more rare of a find, but we're always after the new experience. So you might be onto some trend for the coming year.
I have yet to try a red champagne or cava or Cremant, but I'm looking forward to it. So now you've got me on the hunt for a bottle.
You'll have to report back.
I will absolutely do that.
Catherine, we're going to be drinking cava and Cremant all summer long.
I sure hope so.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the bubbles.
You can follow Catherine at yourfairywinemother.com. This week's recipe comes from listener Mae Chandran, who resides not here in Pittsburgh, but on the West Coast. And she submitted a recipe for Mapo Tofu. Let's give her a call and learn a little bit more about this dish.
Hello, Doug.
Hello, Mae. How are you?
I'm fine. I hope you're well, too.
Doing really well here. So, Mae, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about this dish, Mapo Tofu?
Really, it's pretty interesting, this recipe. And I found out it was originated in Chengdu, which is the capital of Sichuan, which is in south central China. And it was invented in the late 1800s. According to a story, customers asked Mrs. Chen, that was her name, she was the grandmother figure. She ran a restaurant called Chen Mapo Tofu Restaurant. And at that time, somebody asked for this recipe before, I guess she had that name. And so she came up with this Mapo Tofu. And because she has pockmark, face from smallpox, they just called it Mapo Tofu, which means old woman, pockmarked old woman's beaker.
Oh my goodness.
And that's where it comes from. So
if I'm saying right, pockmark means that you have a little bit of a pock complexion from having chicken pox.
I guess pockmark. So pockmarked old woman's beaker. Old woman is the paw. Paw means grandma.
Yes.
It means old woman.
How interesting. Oh, it's so fascinating to find out where a dish comes from. And actually, yes, that name, what a story.
And Szechuan is the same thing as Sichuan.
Yes.
Now they call it Sichuan. Is famous. It's one of the most famous cuisines in the world. And they're known for their spiciness.
Yes.
Okay, pungent and spicy. They have liberal use of the garlic chili paste as well as the Szechuan pepper.
Yes.
So they're very famous. They're famous for their other dishes like dan dan noodles, also kung pao chicken. That's one of their most famous dish. And twice cooked pork among the Sichuan hot pot. So many dishes come
So
from
many.
that area.
It's true. Mae, if you ever come visit me in Pittsburgh, we'll need to either go to Chengdu Gourmet or Sichuan Spice here, because all of
my
those
God.
dishes, you're kind of getting me hungry for all of that food.
Oh my God, I would love to. I'm telling you. Because I grew up eating Cantonese, and believe me, I had to come to California, to UCLA when I went to college, to find out about all these other wonderful cuisine of China. And China is so vast. We can
Yes.
talk endlessly,
Yes.
lifetime after lifetime, talking about this stuff.
Yes.
So, because I grew up in a Cantonese, and as what Cantonese is so different. Lot use of soy sauce, very light and delicate.
Yes,
completely
milder.
Different.
Right, right.
Completely different. Yeah.
Okay, so we should move on and talk about your recipe then. Because if listeners haven't seen the recipe card for Mapo Tofu, you're using tofu. It has garlic and ginger, scallions. The vegetables are peppers and onions. I did want to ask you about the tofu. You mentioned something about rinsing and draining it for half an hour. And this is medium firm tofu. How do you, when you say drain the tofu, how do you do it?
Well, you do it in a colander, you set it up to maybe a container to drain all the liquid out. Because if you don't do that, it becomes too watery.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Are you putting any weight on top of the tofu block?
No.
Okay.
Please don't do that.
Got you.
I don't believe in that.
Okay.
You just naturally drain.
Got you.
Naturally drain.
All right.
And then cut into 1/2-inch cubes.
All right. And so once you've prepped all of your vegetable and the tofu, you start off I hear you have this great old wok, and you're starting off with the vegetables sort of in round one, and then you remove them and you add the tofu and some of the seasonings. And specifically, tell me the wine and the bean sauce that you add.
Well, let me just tell you, after experimenting years, about 7-8 years to perfect this, I finally found out what the secret ingredient was. And that is the Toban de Jen. It's a chili bean sauce. That brand is by Lee Kwam, whatever. Anyway, I have a picture of it. You can.
I'll put a picture of it on our social media feed so everyone knows that brand.
Because I used to use other brands, like garlic with chili paste and all that stuff. I did so many other things, and it never came to the way I wanted. So when I found out this sauce, that is your secret ingredient. If you want it to taste really great and authentic, this is what I suggest. One other thing. You do not have to use the Chinese Shaoxing wine, which you can buy in any of the Asian grocery. However, I always use it for my cooking because it does add a little delicate taste, but it's optional. Okay?
All right.
Most people can't tell the difference.
All right. But it is that other sauce that's really quintessential. You must have it.
That is essential.
Got you.
Yep.
Mae, thank you so much for this recipe and the history lesson on its name and origin. If people want to find you to follow your cooking and more of your food stories, where can they find you, Mae? Well,
they can find me on Instagram, Mae Chandran. That's my name, Mae Chandran, MaeChandran.
And the other place they can find you is on this season of The Great American Recipe on PBS, which is really how we met.
You know what? Oh my God, I almost forgot. Yes, of course. I'm going to be cooking along with Doug and all my other great fellow friends and fellow contestants.
That's right.
That's going to be exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. And so people can find us on that show Monday nights this summer, or streaming on PBS or the PBS app.
And I just want to mention something else. June 10th, I'll be on Instagram Live. It's an award-winning show, Small Bites, interview with celebrity chef Katie Chin. So it's by half hour. So if you want to watch that, I don't know what kind of questions he's going to throw at me, but it'll be interesting, I'm sure.
I love it. Mae, thank you so much for your recipe and for being on the Pittsburgh Dish.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Doug.
You too.
I was really looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
And we'll talk again soon.
Yes, thank you. You too.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You can always share a recipe with us at our website, www.pittsburghdish.com. That's our show for this week. We'd like to thank all of our guests and contributors, and to Kevin Selecki of Carnegie Accordion Company for providing the music to our show. We'll be back again next week with another fresh episode. Stay tuned.